When humanity first discovered the planet of Tau Volantis, there was no way to know what to expect, as it was found in a previously uncharted region of the galaxy, using an unconventional method. What made this new world so intriguing was that it was found by attempting to trace the enigmatic marker signal to its source, in the hopes of discovering the source of the seemingly limitless energy that the markers appeared to generate, something that humanity hoped to harness for itself. This was also a difficult time for humanity as there were ongoing interplanetary wars between Earth and the sovereign colonies, and the SCF were on the brink of losing. In their desperation, they launched an expedition to the newly discovered planet in order to unlock the mysteries of the markers. For all the experience humanity had gained in colonizing space, they had never encountered any alien life in the universe up until that point, but Tau Volantis was different. Since its very discovery was the result of tracking an alien signal, it was assumed that there would be alien life in some capacity present there, and so the expedition wasn't just a military endeavor, but also a scientific one. A series of protocols were developed in the event of possible first contact scenarios, including Scenario 5, a total purge of the expedition and all associated personnel and data, if the first contact presented an extinction-level threat. Yet despite all their planning and expertise, nothing could have prepared them for what they found on the planet once they arrived. They believed they were traveling to the marker homeworld, and assumed they would find the creators of these strange monoliths. Instead, they found themselves on a frozen wasteland of a dead planet, with hurricane winds and snowstorms ravaging what was left of the barren surface. Among the jagged cliffs and steep valleys, markers. Thousands and thousands of red markers like the copies that humanity had built. The SCF set up the colony and began to study this strange dead world, only to realize that this world wasn't as dead as it initially appeared. Once the colony was operational, research teams moved in and started to dig through the ice, and it is under the ice that the most startling discovery was made. The frozen remains of giant aliens buried under the ice in a vast subsurface city. While the discovery of the black marker on Earth was seen as an indisputable evidence of alien life, humanity never found any clue of who or what created the ancient object. This is what made the discovery on Tau Volantis so significant, as it was the first time humans had discovered actual alien life forms, or at least the preserved remains of them. And the presence of the markers on the planet's surface at first seemed to support the idea that this was indeed the marker homeworld, and that these frozen giants were indeed the creators of the markers. However, there is a strange problem with this theory, as the aliens trapped in the ice were found to be around 2 million years old, while the marker found on Earth was 65 million years old. So obviously the markers predated the aliens found on Tau Volantis. Upon further research, Dr. Earl Serrano, the head of archaeology and the lead scientist studying the aliens, correctly deduced that the aliens were not the creators of the markers but, like humanity, had just found a black marker and attempted to replicate it, resulting in the red marker copies found on the planet's surface. This raised some obvious questions such as who were these mysterious beings, and what caused their extinction? And more importantly, how did the markers fit into this picture? And why did the markers' signal lead them to this place? As the researchers continued to excavate and study the alien ruins, Serrano's own observations helped him piece together a great deal of the aliens' history. Anatomically, the aliens resemble a mix between fish and the great apes of Earth. They are vertebrates, with a hexapod body plan, with 2 long primary arms and a pair of short, backward-jointed legs being used to carry them on land, giving them an ape-like walking gait. 2 smaller arms emerge from the sides underneath the torso and seem to be used to grasp or hold on to objects. Their elongated flat skulls had various grooves and bone-like growths arranged in a symmetrical crest-like fashion. One of the more surprising aspects of their anatomy is the presence of gills in addition to what Serrano describes as swim bladders and collapsible fins. This led Serrano to deduce that the aliens were fish-like and aquatic, or at least semi-aquatic in nature, with their bodies adapted for both underwater and terrestrial life in their vast cities. Following this line of thinking, he also deduced that this planet may not have always been a frozen wasteland, but that it may have once been covered with a vast liquid water ocean, and that at some point, a sudden catastrophic event resulted in a massive planet-wide flash freeze that trapped everything in ice. Around this time, the biology teams attempted to thaw some of the aliens in an attempt to see if they could revive and communicate with them, not realizing that the creatures they were thawing were in fact necromorphs and not the uninfected aliens. The released aliens went on to kill some of the scientists and spread the infection around. This triggered a new necromorph outbreak on the planet, but at first, the SCAF forces did not realize the true danger they were in and were slow to respond, as they thought of these events as small-scale, isolated incidents resulting from the stress of working in secret in such a hostile environment. When soldiers on patrol went missing, rumors spread that it was the work of a massive crustacean-like creature they thawed out of the ice, but these rumors were quickly dismissed as made-up campfire stories similar to the Yeti or the Bigfoot. But people continued to disappear, and more horrifying stories started coming out of the ruins where the deep dig teams worked. Dr. Serrano, however, appeared to be unaffected by the horrors around him and managed to stay objective and continue his study of this strange world and its former inhabitants. Through the dissection and study of a pristine specimen the scientists called Rosetta, he built a device that could interface with the alien machine found under the ice. He called this device the Codex, and the principle on which it worked was quite simple. By harnessing the information present inside an alien brain, they could interact with the alien machine. Through further research, he also discovered how Rosetta was different from the other aliens, as the ones they had previously encountered were altered by the same marker signal that humanity now hoped to harness. This was the connection he realized between the markers and the aliens. They had been enthralled by these strange monoliths and were manipulated to create more markers, spreading its corrupt influence across their vast empire, until the majority of them succumbed to its effects and turned into necromorphs. At this point, the SCAF had become aware of the outbreak and tried to contain it, and Serrano himself studied these necromorphs and came to the conclusion that humanity was going through exactly what the aliens experienced on Tau Volantis. He then pieced together the final pieces of the puzzle. The aliens may have been a successful spacefaring civilization with an empire spanning many star systems and their population numbering in the trillions. But like humanity, they had grown too numerous and needed increasingly large amounts of resources and energy to sustain themselves. But then they discovered a black marker on their home world and attempted to replicate it, hoping to harness its limitless energy for themselves. In so doing, they spread the markers throughout their worlds until the markers turned on them. One by one, their worlds fell victim, until convergence began on Tau Volantis itself. But a small faction of aliens were aware of the danger and were seemingly immune to the marker's effects, and so they built the machine on Tau Volantis to put a stop to convergence and destroy the brother moon that was forming in their sky. And while the machine successfully froze the planet along with a half-formed moon and halted the convergence event, it failed to completely destroy the still nascent moon, leaving it free to spread its cries for help via the marker signal. And it is this call that the SCAF had answered when they discovered Tau Volantis. Serrano knew that if the machine could be properly configured, it could destroy the moon, but unfortunately, by this point the SCAF forces had failed to contain the outbreak and Scenario 5 was declared, ordering the full purge of all personnel, research, and even the ships in orbit of Tau Volantis. And despite his best efforts to get to the machine in time, Serrano died during the attempt, and General Mahad, the military commander overseeing the execution of the purge, destroyed the Codex and then shot himself as the final loose end. 200 years later, Isaac and his crew reached Tau Volantis following Ellie's trail, who in turn had been searching for ways to stop the threat of the markers on human colonies. Upon arriving, they encountered a heavy necromorph presence on the derelict remains of the scaff flotilla, and after much deliberation, they decided to go down to the planet's surface for answers. And on the planet, sure enough, Isaac and the surviving crew eventually came across the aliens' remains, and as Isaac ventured closer to the underground city, he finally ran into the alien necromorphs. They are large brutes that primarily attack by charging head first into their target in a gorilla-like manner and bashing their skulls into their victims with enough force to shatter heavy armor and bone. Aside from this, they can also swipe their long, sinewy forearms in a forward arc, slashing or knocking back a potential victim. If a target is far enough away, then they can split open their torsos and eject multiple infected versions of what would have been their offspring. These small alien necromorphs function similarly to the crawlers seen on Titan Station, where they slowly crawl towards their target and violently explode upon contact. Beyond this, the alien necromorphs are also able to climb vertical surfaces effortlessly and are physically robust, being able to survive multiple hits from even a grenade launcher before their limbs give out. And as with most necromorphs, the best strategy to stop them is to dismember their limbs, but they move surprisingly fast for their size, making it difficult to place a good hit. To make matters worse, they usually attack in groups of 2 or 3, and their numbers are more concentrated close to the alien machine. There's a good reason for this, as the machine required the pure DNA of the aliens to be unlocked, and the last remaining survivors of this planet were gathered around the machine in a desperate attempt to complete the machine's final configuration that would have destroyed the moon. But with most of the population having already turned into necromorphs, the survivors were cornered in this location with a massive necromorph horde closing in on them. In a desperate final act, the survivors sacrificed their lives as their bodies became a part of the machine itself. And they were forced to fire up the machine prematurely, which resulted in the cold wave that froze the planet and the half-formed moon. Here, Serrano notes that the aliens chose self-sacrifice to stop the Brethren Moon's onslaught across the universe and to prevent them from getting to us. But I have a theory that that was not the Tau Volantis' true goal. In fact, they may have sacrificed themselves to allow other groups of their own civilization to escape the moons and ensure the survival of their own species. After all, even if they were aware of life on Earth, the fact is that 2 million years ago, there was no technological civilization on Earth, and the most intelligent species on Earth at that time were still just groups of upright apes that were not that high on the food chain. So obviously, when faced with the prospect of certain extinction, their first priority would be their own self-preservation as opposed to protecting a world where life could just as easily go extinct through natural disasters as it would if the moons found them. Add to this the fact that they had individuals who were seemingly able to resist the marker's effects, and it would make sense that they would try to hide away at least some members of their civilization, so they could eventually rebuild in secret and figure out a way to fight back. It may be possible that as the machine was fired up for the first time 2 million years ago, some of the survivors managed to escape the planet amid the chaos, as the necromorphs would be busy trying to stop the machine. Perhaps they went into hiding and are still alive somewhere, hiding out in the dark corners of the galaxy. There are no definitive answers, but multiple clues suggest the possibility. For one, the aliens were very likely an interstellar species. Their mastery of advanced technology and understanding of the marker phenomenon implies that Tau Volantis may not have been their only planet. It's possible that, as the infection spread across their home world, some escaped, fleeing to distant stars to warn others or to regroup. Second, the existence of the machine suggests a deep understanding of the markers and their life cycle. Such knowledge is unlikely to have emerged in isolation. If this species had encountered the markers before, perhaps on other planets, they may have developed countermeasures elsewhere, hidden bases, automated defenses, or even hidden sanctuaries in uncharted systems. Finally, there's the possibility that some of the aliens might be in stasis, frozen deep beneath the surface, beyond the reach of both necromorph corruption and the scaff's excavation. Cryostasis would not only be possible but easy to achieve for a civilization as advanced as the Tau Volantis, especially given the planet's naturally cold climate and the aliens' own versatile biology. If even a handful survived, the implications are enormous. They would represent not only a key to understanding the marker threat, but also the last hope for stopping it, creatures who fought this war before and perhaps lived to tell the tale. But of course, as always, this is just speculation on my part, and perhaps we will learn more about them in a dead space for if we ever get to see one. But for now, that's all I have for this video, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and if you liked the video, then please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more, and I'll see you in the next one.